started. We do have a quorum, so we can go ahead and get started.
Oh, there's Miss Torado. Okay, awesome. She's in.
We have left practice session chair. We are live and I am now recording. Chair, you're on mute.
The time is 5:44. It appears we have a quorum. The Community Police Oversight Board will now be in session. My name is Jace Robo and I'll be Carey Jr. I am the chair of the Oversight Board. Taylor, do we have any open comment?
Yes, sir. We have two speakers for the beginning of this meeting. First, we have Dolores Phillips.
Okay, we can go ahead with Ms. Phillips. Give me 1 second to give me 1 second so I can read our policy here. I'm fumbling between screens because I'm not in the office. Bear with me real quick here. Okay, now we're good to go. Okay, we have a quorum. Let me just go over the mission of the Community Police Oversight Board quickly. The mission of the Community Police Oversight Board is to enhance the public's trust that complaints of misconduct against departmental employees are conducted fair and thoroughly, are transparent, and ensure City of Dallas residents have an accessible means to the complaint process. Duties and functions ensure fair acceptance and processing of external administrative complaints, review facts and evidence of a critical or external administrative complaint against a police officer, direct the monitor, the Office of Community Police Oversight, to initiate independent administrative investigation, engage in community outreach, accept for members of the public written complaints, take sworn testimony from witnesses, request the city manager to review disciplinary action taken by the chief of police, and recommend to the city manager and chief of police improvements to departmental procedures, practices, training, and early warning systems. During board meetings, members shall preserve order and decorum and shall neither by conversation or otherwise delay or interrupt the proceedings or refuse to obey the order of the chair or the rules of the board. All members shall accord the utmost courtesy to each other, to city employees, and to members of the public appearing before the board, and shall refrain at all times from rude and derogatory remarks, reflection as to the integrity, abusive comments, and statements as to the motives and personalities. Per our adopted rules and procedures, speakers will be allowed 3 minutes per person. For some discretion by me is needed based on the number of speakers. The time may be adjusted. Public comments will also be taken near the end of the meeting for those who are not able to speak at the beginning. Please understand our goal here is to be productive and to have healthy and even spirited dialogue. To do so, we must establish some structure to how we engage with one another. And with that, we can start with the first speaker. Are you available?
Hello?
Yes.
Hello? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Can I get an extra minute?
We can only give you 3 minutes, unfortunately.
Dolores Phillips, 567 West Dickey Road, Apartment A, Grand Prairie, Texas, 75051. Over the years, I would periodically put in the search bar of AOL, the city of Dallas retaliates, and it would come up with nothing. On last year, I found Dallas Observer's articles. Dallas Observer article by Jim Schutz, July 3rd, 2014, states that email trail, speaking of Robert Groden, I told you about, showed elaborate planning for his arrest from police headquarters to the park department at City Hall, but for some reasons never explained. A federal judge who was in the process of leaving the bench for a comfortable academic appointment dismissed the city from the case as a defendant. Then he turned the case over to a new judge that left the arresting cop out there on his lonesome as if he had thought it all up on his own whim. When the jury announced its verdict clearing the police officer of violating Groden's civil rights, the jury also sent the judge a question, which he read in open court. They wanted to know why the city was not a defendant. In the Dallas Observer article dated September 8th, 2016, Jim Schutz writes, the battle between Dallas City Hall and Groden probably is not well known within our municipal borders because the city's only daily newspaper and the major media here have given it scant attention. The Dallas Observer, March 10, 2017 states, this week, when the news of the settlement became known, City Council member Philip Kingston vowed to continue fighting to find out who was behind all of it in the first place. The truth is that he was being targeted, Kingston said. It's crystal clear. So I have asked Dallas City Attorney Larry Castro to go dig and find out who ordered all this crap. No cop did that on his own. At the same time I was coming before the city council meetings from 2013 until now, I was saying the same thing about Corporal Cotner being used, exploited as a pawn to retaliate against me. I said the same thing about the officer who just stopped me January 25th, 2021, that she was exploited as a pawn to retaliate against me using the open quid pro quo as an excuse. I don't fight with police, and that is a mark against my name that's so heinous that if you want it against your name, you go out there and run up on a police officer, each one of you, and see what happened and get a true police report connected to your name. I'm going to be knocking on your doors humbly. Each one of you have become complicit in this cover-up. The city of Dallas is now named in a lawsuit. The Dallas County is now named in a lawsuit. DPD is now named in a lawsuit. I'm going to speak humbly. If it don't sound like it, it's because I'm hurt because of the lies and the deception. I'm going to take the blow.
Excuse me.
And thank you for
I got a question.
I've already signed up for next week.
No, I have a question. Did you say that you filed a lawsuit against the city of Dallas? Excuse me. Are you still there?
I think she hung up, Chair.
Okay, we need to clarify if she's filed a lawsuit against the city of Dallas, because if she has filed a lawsuit, until that lawsuit is resolved, she wouldn't be able to participate in board meetings if she's discussing the issue of her lawsuit at the board meeting. Okay, so we need to find that out.
Chair, if I may, I believe I have looked into this before. She does not have any open litigation as of now against the city.
Okay, thank you. I want to clarify.
Mr. Chair, she's finna join back on now, okay?
No, we're fine. We're fine. We're fine. We can move on to the next speaker. Is there another speaker lineup for public comment?
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. So can you tell me that one more time, please, about Ms.
Is there another speaker lineup for public comment? The only question I had, Attorney Mitchell was able to answer the question. I wanted to verify whether there was litigation against the city, and Attorney Mitchell stated that there wasn't.
Okay,
That was the only thing I was trying to clarify.
yes, sir. I will let Ms. Phillips know. Yes, sir, we have, Ms. Manders Lowry.
Okay.
Hi.
Okay,
Good,
Ms.
good,
Phillips.
good evening. You have
Hey.
3
City
minutes
attorney
before you.
is for.
Okay, thank you guys for having me. Thank you so much for listening and especially for your really important service to our community. I'm a Dallas mom and teacher and Girl Scout leader and founder of Lake Highlands Area Moms and More Against Racism. And this past Mother's Day weekend, a group of multiracial, multi-faith mothers collected signatures of community members who want to see more police reform and public oversight and expanded and equitable public safety and health efforts in our city. We represent Hamilton Park, UMC, Mothers Against Police Brutality, Not My Son, Reform Now, Faith Forward Dallas, and Walk for Reform. A couple of our leaders are the daughters of Black police officers, so we know about good policing. They have together over 70 years in law enforcement, and neither one has ever discharged their weapons. But these moms are also the mothers of Black sons who fear daily for their sons' lives driving around. And I just want to thank you guys for your service. We want to know how we can help rebuild public trust and build up public safety and cooperation with you all and the police department. We want the people who feel like they just don't matter to have a seat at this table. We've asked Dallas Police Chief Eddie Garcia to root out systemic racism in the Dallas Police Department, tackle the growing problem of white supremacy by adding clear policy and extensive background checks, mandate education of officers on the systemic roots of racism in policing, lower the use of deadly force by reducing the number of officers who shoot unarmed people, focus on de-escalation, not confrontation, decrease the points of contact between the police and the public, employ social workers to assist with mentally ill and unsheltered persons, limit the use of militarized weapons, utilize unarmed traffic officers for traffic stops, put into immediate action and policy the recommendations laid out in the Department of Justice's 21st Century Policing Guide. We're calling on the mayor and city council to invest in low-income communities with affordable housing and living wages, increase in community services, more funding for mental health, rehabilitation, social workers, job programs. We believe, and research proves, that when communities invest in public health, public safety improves. And we invite you to reimagine public safety in our city with us, guided by the Center for Policing Equity and their research and data and recommendations, and invite you, as I see you're doing, to center people of color in these important discussions. We ask the city to collect and evaluate the results of officer-initiated traffic stops and create an unarmed traffic enforcement unit to end qualified immunity and be transparent with excessive force complaints. Thank you all so much for listening, and let us know how we can help you.
Thank you so much. Can you provide Ms. Woods with all of your contact info so that we can get in touch with you?
Yes, and I think I forgot to say, like 370 people in our community signed on this, mostly moms for Mother's Day.
Thank you. Thank you. We definitely will be getting in touch with you, okay?
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Okay, and with that, we will move on. If we can do quick.
Share. Miss Phillips joined back on the line. Was whatever said, did she need to hear it or speak at all? Did you need her for something?
No, I don't. Attorney Mitchell was able to clarify.
Okay, she wasn't able to hear anything because she got off.
Yeah, that's
So
fine. Yeah, no, we're fine. We're fine. Attorney Mitchell was able to clarify.
Yes,
Okay, moving on. Next is roll. Give me 1 second. Let me get myself organized here. All right, here we go. District 1. District 1 present. Okay. District 2.
Here.
All right. Evening, sir. I am District 3. I'm here. District 4.
Present.
Glad to see you, ma'am. District 5. District 5. District 6. District 6 on the line. Okay. District 7.
Jose Rivas, District 7, representing Adam Bazaldua.
Good evening, Mr. Vice Chair.
Evening.
District 8. District 8. District 9. Is District 9 on the line?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, this is Reb Wright.
All right. Glad to have you here, Reverend Wright. Reverend Wright, when
Yes, sir.
we get done with this call, when we get done with this meeting, can you give me a call this evening? I
Yes,
owe you
sir.
a follow-up. All right.
All right.
Okay, thank you. District 11, is District 11 on the line?
Skip 10.
I'm coming back to you. District 11 on the line.
It's cold, man. Cold blood.
District 10, is District 10 on the line?
District 10 is here. Ezekiel Tyson, present.
Thank you, sir. Glad you're here, man.
Glad to be here.
All right. District 12.
D. Wadsworth, present.
Glad you're here, Ms. Wadsworth. District 13.
Present.
All right. Mr. Kidner, glad to see you. All right.
Good to see everyone.
District 14.
Mr. Marshall will be joining us in just a second,
Okay.
just a little bit. Oh, there he
I'm
goes.
here. Just got here. Sorry about that. Traffic was terrible.
Glad you're here. Glad you made it safely. And District 15.
Juan Levo, present.
All right. Next we have, I'll give everyone time to review the minutes. And then once you review them, we'll I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
David Kidner, motion to approve.
D. Wadsworth, motion to second.
Properly moved and seconded. The motion to approve the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Same right? All right, motion to approve minutes passed. Okay, we will move on to our briefing items. The first one is part one of mental health and policing. I will turn this over to Director McClary as we review the video of Mr. Tony Temple.
So good evening, everyone.
Director,
This month,
Director, give me one second. One thing I do want to say for this video, we will not be asking questions of the Temple family because this incident is currently under investigation. So we will receive the presentation, any comments that the family may have, and then we will move on to the part two of the mental health and policing presentation.
and Mr. Chairman, the Temple family is not joining us this evening. That'll be for item 3.
Okay.
I just want to let the board know that May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and so I thought it would be appropriate for us to look at issues around mental health and mental illness and policing. So the first video that we're going to show you all is Tony Temple. I want the board to understand that we are not going to discuss the merits of this case because the case is on appeal. And so we will not be able to actually do an independent investigation of the case at this time. But because this video was released to the public, I think it's very important that you all understand the seriousness of the issues that we're grappling with and what can happen when mental health and policing kind of coincide or collide. This event actually happened in 2016. It came up to our office because we did hear from the Temple family. They are not joining us this evening because this case is in a lawsuit and on appeal. But we did hear from them very recently, last week, about their concerns about the case. And so at some point in time, hopefully the board will be able to look at it. But today I really want to show you this video. The Tirado family is here, mom and dad, so you may want to turn your video off for this. This is very graphic, and I want the board to understand what can happen. I want to give you a little bit of background on the Temple case. Tony Temple was a young man that called the police for help. He called 911 and said that he was not taking his medication. He alerted them that he had mental illness, had mental health concerns. And so the police responded. Prior to the police responding, he had actually been, when he called dispatch, when he called 911, he told me he was schizophrenic and he suffered from schizophrenia and depression. And he told the 911 operator at the time that he did not have his medication. So when police arrived, they did realize that they were coming there for someone that was in mental distress. There was no allegation that he had committed any crime, et cetera. And he had actually been detained by the security officers that were not DPD, but that were working at this establishment at the time. So you'll also hear some in the video where the police officers, Dallas PD, are actually trying to exchange handcuffs. I want you all to understand what that came about because the security guards who are not DPD had actually handcuffed and tried to restrain Mr. Temple prior to them arriving on the scene. And so the Dallas Morning News fought really hard to have this video released. It was finally released. And the coroner, according to the coroner's report, the coroner actually ruled this death a homicide and determined that Mr. Temple died of a sudden cardiac arrest, secondarily caused by toxic effects of cocaine and stress associated with physical restraint. It's very interesting to me. And, I think the world got really awakened by George Floyd, but this is very similar to Mr. Floyd. And it happened right here in our own city of Dallas and happened many years before Mr. Floyd's death. And so I am showing you this video in the hopes that you all just get a very stark picture of what can happen with policing and mental illness. And like I said, hopefully when the case is no longer on appeal, it may be able to come back to the board for discussion of the actual merits of the case. And so I'm going to ask if Ms. Woods could bring up the video, and we will play the video. And if there's any questions or anything that's arising for the board about what you saw, we can probably take a few of those, but like, once again, we will not be able to get into the merits of the case because it is on appeal. So Ms. Woods, if you could share your screen with us.
Okay, if you can give me a thumbs up, if you can see my screen. Mr. Marshall, I see you. Can you see it? Got it. Okay. Let me know if you give me a thumbs up if you can hear it, okay? Can you hear it?
No, I'm not hearing anything.
No.
Mr. Olivo just worked on this. Okay. Hold on just a second.
Taylor, when you get the sound working, if you can just start it from the beginning.
Yes. Mr. Marshall, let me know if you can hear it.
Oh,
Okay. Oh, got push play, does it?
not hearing any sound.
Still can't hear it?
No, we're not hearing any sound.
There's no sound.
I promise y'all I worked on this before everybody got on.
Sometimes you have to, there's a button when you get ready to share your screen where you have to click to say share sound.
That's for Teams. When I did it earlier, I just switched it from my screen so it could be heard. Let me try to just move it over.
Ms. Woods, go ahead and play the video. There's normally a 30-second delay on the volume. If it's not playing after 30 seconds, that means we can't hear it. Let it play till it actually shows.
It's talking as soon as you turn the video on. It's no delay. Okay, so can y'all see it now?
Yes.
We can see it.
Got it.
Just having a problem with volume.
Still not hearing any volume.
Just let it play till it gets to 30 seconds and let's just see if it kicks in.
The sound is on because I can hear it.
We can't hear it.
Give me just a second, everyone. Can y'all hear it?
No, there's no sound.
No. Okay.
Chair, I don't know if we want to go to the second item while Ms. Wood works on this, and then we can hopefully come back to this.
Yes, we can move on. 1 second. We'll move on. Mental health and policing, the Right Care program. We have Director McCleary, Tabitha D. Castillo, and the interim Right Care program manager.
So, Ms. Woods, while you're working on the first video, if you can give me host sharing rights so I can share, I'll bring up the PowerPoint for the Right Care program while you're working on the video. So I'm going to bring a presentation to you all from the Right Care team. I'm so excited that Ms. Castillo is joining us. I had kind of wanted to do things in order. I wanted you all to kind of see when policing and mental health go wrong, but there is a solution here in the city of Dallas. The city of Dallas has put into effect the Right Care program, and I'm so excited that they accepted my invitation to come and join us. You all are going to just be able to hear from just a small snippet of their team, Ms. Castillo, but this is a large and mighty team. And what we talked about doing later on is actually having the whole Right Care team come, and she will tell you what that looks like. But one of the things that I wrote to you all in the memo was there was this NPR All Things Considered show that talked about woefully inadequate mental health services across the country and policing. And in that article, it lifted up some of the problems when police are having to respond to mental health crisis and looking at how cities are trying to bring a solution. And so I'm so excited that here in the city of Dallas, we are trying to bring a solution to the issue when mental health and policing coming to coincide. And so I'm going to go ahead and see if I can pull up this PowerPoint from Ms. Castillo and have her, just a second, I'm gonna pull this up. And she will be able to share with you all this exciting program that is actually expanding. And many of us that have had a chance to see their work firsthand are very excited about this program expanding. And I'm really excited to have her come and talk to you all about the work that they're doing. Alrighty.
Well, I can go ahead and get started and at least introduce myself.
Sounds great.
Okay. Well, first, thank you all for allowing us this opportunity to come and share about our program. We appreciate opportunities like this because the more we can get the word out about Right Care, the better. And so I am a program manager in the Office of Integrated Public Safety Solutions. I am by no means a law enforcement or medical expert. I will leave that to our professionals that work within the program in the field. But I am responsible for spearheading the Right Care expansion and coordinating the program agencies. Here on the call with me, I have Kevin Oden, who is the third-tier executive also within our office, who assists in overseeing the Right Care program and is also overseeing the new crisis teams that are coming online within our office. We're led by our director, former executive assistant chief, David Hughes. And so that's just some background about the management of how Right Care is being managed currently within our office. Right Care is a program that's making a tremendous impact in not just the health of our residents, but the health of our community. And so I know we were going to show the first video, but I wanted to also share with you all that I wanted to share with you all just an example or snippet of some of the interactions that the Right Care team has. Before I get started into the nuts and bolts, but so recently our team looked into a case where that there was an individual that was experiencing chronic outbursts due to schizophrenia that we later learned was due to schizophrenia. And the individual was known in their apartment community. They were known by the officers that worked their beat. But then it was at one instance that a patrol officer noticed the frequency or the call volume to this one particular location. And it was at that time that they connected that individual with a Right Care team member. And so just from that interaction and research just on the case, we learned that the Dallas Police Department was called to that location 7 times within a year period. And so I think then it was then that the patrol officer, we noticed that, you know, there's something is going on here, and we need to look further, further than just having patrol respond. And so after having the team work with now the patient, we were able to provide an assessment, which is something that we typically do on every call. Have our Parkland social worker do an assessment, and then later we were able to refer that patient to have further evaluation or psychiatric evaluation. And the story kind of concludes with the patient learned of their diagnosis of schizophrenia, and they were able to kind of loop in that patient's family, who were also unaware of the frequent outbursts and things relevant to the illness that the patient had been dealing with for some time. But that's just one small snippet of just many scenarios that we come into contact with through the Right Care team. And just for some background for you all, the city of Dallas receives over 13,000 mental health calls annually. And so it's out of this need and the success of our pilot program that was launched in January 2018 that the city manager has committed to expand our program from just one team to now we have 5 teams providing citywide coverage. Well, I'll explain kind of the members of our team. So our team is made up of the North Texas Behavioral Authority, and also, the North Texas Behavioral Authority, who employ 911 dispatch clinicians that are stationed in the call center. And then we also have our field team, which is a co-response team made up of the Dallas Fire Rescue paramedics, the Dallas Police Department, and a Parkland social worker. This is a co-response model. And so as a team responds to a mental health call, all 3 of those members of the field team will arrive to the scene to provide an immediate response to the crisis. They, you know, the officers are, they wear khakis and polos. They respond in a or an unmarked police Tahoe. And we have a pretty systematic protocol for how the team executes each call. And I'll get into that once Taylor's already showed the workflow process, but let me back up. The team right now, as I mentioned, we have 5 teams providing citywide coverage. We operate on 2 shifts, and that's from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. I want to emphasize that some of the objectives of our program, and one being that our main focus is to, provide an immediate response to those who are in crisis, and then 2, to provide a continued level of care for those patients. Prior to right care, when an officer would respond to the call, unfortunately, the next steps would be jail time or hospitalization even. But our second goal then would be to divert those unnecessary hospitalizations and trips to jail. And our third point, or our last, or another ultimate objective would be to have this team respond to calls that we may relieve our first-time responders, to allow them to respond to higher priority calls that may be going on within the same time. As I mentioned, we have over 13,000 calls that come in annually. And so this team really helps balance the workload and disperse manpower as needed. So I see Taylor has the workflow chart. I wanted to kind of give you all a visual of how it works. And so I'll just go through that very quickly with you. So as a call comes in, we have, as I mentioned, the 911 behavioral health clinician housed within the 911 call center. Those clinicians are there monitoring and assisting call takers and answering calls and helping them advise on just how we should dispatch those calls to right care. And they're also even providing just general, providing help and assistance to those who may not necessarily need right care, but they can provide or route other services to the person calling in. And then I'll go into the next point is once the right care team arrives to the scene, there is a standard protocol that I mentioned before, where the team is dispatched to the location. The officer gets out, ensures that the scene is safe, and then clears that everything is safe for the paramedic and the social worker. And then we have once the paramedic and the social worker, have the clear, they also arrive to the scene. The medic will then provide a medical assessment, check vitals to make sure that there aren't any medical needs. And then from that point on, the social worker pretty much takes over the call. The social worker as this is a co-response team, this is a social worker-led effort, and that the next steps are determined by the social worker from their assessment. Our social workers are licensed by the state, and so we rely on them and their expertise in advising what the patient needs at that time or future treatment. And what that could look like, that could be, needing to transport a patient to outpatient facility, needing to, look up in the hospital records if they've had mental health issues in the past, or if they are just needing to have their prescriptions filled, or if there's a housing situation and they may need to be connected to a caseworker or other community resources. The last kind of bullet within our process would be patient follow-up. We provide a 24-hour patient follow-up on all of our patients and interactions. So we don't just provide the response and send them for treatment. There is a follow-up process. I will just add too, we are also have an additional follow-up team coming online, provided through the North Texas Behavioral Authority, that would act as an additional follow-up team that would provide just a resource for those who frequently call 911 or those who are frequently using the service. So that's just a very brief overview. As Ms. McClary said, I do plan and hope to come back with our full team to kind of give you more of an in-depth presentation of just what it's like to be in the field from the agency perspective. But if that, I'll take any questions that you may have about our program.
Thank you so much for your presentation. It was extremely informative. Board members, does anyone have any questions?
Chairman, I have a question.
Sure.
So my question is regarding these phone calls. Are they self-referral that someone's called in, or is a third party called in?
That's a great question. So our calls for service come directly through 911. So and I should make that very clear, if we want to refer residents to these services, we ask them to call 911, and they can ask for the right care team for service.
Okay, Chairman, I have one more question.
Sure.
Okay, my other question is persons who have dementia or exhibit signs of dementia, the confusion, the disorientation, all that, they might not be able to call 911, or they might not have a phone. How are those calls responded to? You know, they got lost on the street or whatever happened.
Well, that's a good question. And I'll be honest with you, I have not heard that question yet, but I can definitely look into that and provide you a better response. But I'm not certain on the dementia patients.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I had a question.
Go ahead.
Ma'am, you were speaking earlier. You said y'all started with one pilot program. Are y'all up to 5 already?
Yes. So as of March 24th, we have 5 active right care teams providing citywide coverage. Yes. In October, we do plan to expand to include an additional 5 teams.
Be 10.
Yes.
Okay. Is that sufficient for the size of Dallas, or do you need more resources, in your opinion?
So for right now, yes. So right now we are answering about 40%, approximately 40% of the mental health calls that are coming in. And so we're not, just with top 5 teams, we're not there yet. Our goal by the end of the year is to at least reach 80%, if not more. But we expect to meet that goal with more teams. As we've gradually added more teams, we've seen a tremendous amount of increase in the interactions that the team is having.
Okay. And I assume as more people know about the program and can ask for it, that could increase your need for more teams as well.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have at the moment.
Are there any other questions, board members?
Chair, I had a question.
Okay.
Right now, you've got 2 shifts that are basically 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. What happens in that dead space from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. when a call comes in? Is that going to be filled in with the new teams that are coming in? Are you going to be going to a 24-hour cycle?
Very good question. We are evaluating, we're constantly evaluating like what the data looks like, what the numbers look like as far as call volume. To answer your first question, so when the right care is not working, the patrol officers or the patrol bureau will answer calls just as they typically would if right care wasn't. So yes, the DPD would respond to those calls just as normal if right care wasn't online. And then to answer your second question about the overnight hours, a lot of the outpatient clinics, they close at about 9 or 10 p.m. And so even if we were functioning overnight, we can make the interaction, but as far as like transporting or filling prescriptions or being seen by a doctor, many of those services aren't open overnight. So typically what we're working through now, and once a patrol unit, or if they, have a call overnight that there was a mental health component, they'll, refer that call or that patient to the team. And then the next morning, they'll go out and do a follow-up to that call to see if there was any services that were needed during that time.
Just as a follow-up, do you have an idea of what percentage of calls is coming in during those overnight hours, or is it a large percentage? Is it 10, 20, 30% of the calls that are coming in the overnight that you're having to follow up on the next day?
I don't have that on hand, but I can defer. Kevin is in our office. I'm not sure if he.
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, I can.
Hi. Thank you, Chair and members of this valuable board, for inviting us. Kevin Oden with the Office of Integrated Public Safety.
Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you, sir. The numbers for April were approximately 15% of calls come in on Dallas Police Department's first watch. That's 11P to 7A. The remaining 85% are on second and third watches, with the third watch, 3 p.m. to 11 p.m., having the lion's share between those 2 watches. So we're covering a large portion, and Tabitha's doing a great job explaining some of the challenges on those first watch hours of having adequate services supporting these teams to be able to take persons to.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Thank you. Any additional questions, board members?
Yeah, so you mentioned that the patrol bureau answers the or at the phone as if the right care team was there. Is this, so what you're saying is that they provide or they make the similar or the same assessment that the right care does during the off hours?
No, so that assessment that's done for the right care team, that assessment, or that type of assessment, so from a social worker's perspective, could only be done from a social worker. So during those times that right care is not available, a patrol unit would be dispatched to answer that call. And so the officers would have to answer and respond and be available. And unfortunately, that could sometimes result into jail time. I mean, the officers have their own, I guess, police assessment, if you will, to determine if the person needs to be taken to another facility, or again, if there's a mental health component, they're able to refer them to right care the following day.
Along with the addition of other teams or more teams in the future, are they going to include non-English speakers, or is that even, or has that even been an issue with phone calls that you guys have received with any language barriers?
From my understanding, the Dallas Police Department and the resources within the call center, I don't believe we've had any challenges as far as language barriers. We do have a pretty diverse unit or team members. So we haven't come across any language barriers as of yet. I think those resources are readily available should we need them.
Thank you.
Any further questions? All right, thank you, Ms. Castillo and Director McClary. It was an awesome presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on the agenda.
Did y'all want me to do the video again?
Yes, are you ready with the video?
Yeah, I'm gonna play the video so you all can see, and then just do the audio from my phone. I spoke with IT, and technically you can't play video, so. Yeah, so I'm just going to, go from my phone and show y'all the video that way, so y'all can hear and see it.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you, Taylor.
Okay, can you all see my screen?
Go right ahead, Taylor.
You can see it? Okay, I can't see anyone.
You got any name on them right? Just Tony's the only thing we can get.
Can you hear?
Tony! Get on the ground.
Okay.
You're good, Taylor. You're good.
You're gonna kill me. Hey, Tony. Tony. Relax. Relax. Stay down. Tony. Just keep it going. That's too much. relax. I'm gonna try to change cuffs. Okay. That way we don't have to worry about it once it's up. Yeah. The Green Oak cocktail special. Yeah. I'm down like this because they had him down. He's like rolling. Skip top ready. Yeah, you got details. Hey, Tony, what'd you take? That's my ski out here, sir. If those happen to a gurney, one of y'all, I think both run in the back outside the ambulance. It was fun and low so much. All right, bud? It's gonna be all right. Is it acknowledged in the movie? Not a yes to your question, Tony. Tony. Breathe. Tony. I'll fix it. Still free. Yeah, that's good. Take those. I think this is Tony. Stop. Is he asleep? I thought he was snoring. That's what it was. Yeah, he's asleep. Tony. Tony. That's cool. Pick up. I don't like this school. Next day, can't be late. Tony. A bunch of new shoes for the first day of school. Come on. Scrambled eggs. Wait, waffles. Waffles. Fruity waffles. I think he's out cold now. Yes. Like it's got quiet. All of a sudden, just dark him. Oh, there he comes. It's fine. It's fine. Oh, the Green Oaks cocktail, like That exclusive. Oh, okay. I think. Okay, free. It's died out there, did he? I don't think he did. Is he breathing? I didn't kill him. I love it. We give a weed. Yeah, we need friends. He's not breathing? Nope. Oh, yeah. Fire. Oh. Damn shit. Chest fresh. Fuck. He's freezing. He was fine and then just gave up. And I've got his mom on the phone. She knows all this stuff. He's dead. What? Dead. Well,
That's the end of the video, Chair.
Okay. We can move on to, 1 second, I'm sorry, give me 1 minute, my system is frozen. Director, we can move on to part 3.
So now that the board has been able to see the video, I would encourage anyone, even our listening audience, you can just go to YouTube and see it for yourself. Some of it was moving a little slow, so I don't know if you could catch all the dynamics of it, but so on April 19th of 2020, Edgar Louise Tirado Jr. was shot and killed by members of the Dallas Police Department on the LBJ freeway. I had alerted the board about this when it happened, and our office was able to be at the scene of the shooting. According to DPD, on that day, Mr. Tirado Jr. had been on a crime spree and had pulled a weapon at multiple people, including officers, on that day. And the police chief at a press conference showed the weapon that Edgar had and an actual weapon. And so, unfortunately, a family had to get a phone call to let them know that their loved one had been killed. Tonight, we are joined by the parents of Edgar Tirado Jr. I have to just say, personally, I was and am amazed at their strength and their courage. Just so people know that when the videos are showed to the family, our office co-hosts that video showing. And so I met them on a day when they sat and watched the video of their son. His parents were there. One of his sisters were there. So she saw her brother. These parents saw their son on video in his last moments of life. What was so amazing to me was that after viewing that, they literally flew into town. The parents live out of state. They flew in and came straight to the police department. And after seeing all of that, I remember his father distinctly saying, "I don't want this to happen to other families." And so tonight, the Tirado parents are here, Edgar Sr. and Susanna, and they want to share a message with the board about their son. The reason why this is being shared with you all today in our segment on mental health is because they will talk to you about Edgar's struggles with mental health. But I included in the memo to you all pictures of this young man prior to April 19th, right? Because for many people get frozen in that one moment in time, but he was more than a young man that had been wielding a gun. He had been a statewide trumpet player champion in the state of Texas, as big as it is. He was ranked in the top 10. This young man had gone off to the military, but unfortunately later in his life, he was gripped by mental illness. And so with that, I don't want to tell their story. They're here to speak for themselves. I'm going to turn this over now to the parents of Edgar Tirado Jr. And so you will now hear from his parents, Edgar Sr. and Susanna. And I just want to say one more thing. Obviously, this case is very new. It happened on April 19th, so just a little less than a month ago. So the office is still monitoring the investigation. So we are not going to get into the substance of the case tonight. That's not what the parents want. They want you to just hear their story about their son and their hopes for how this board could potentially partner with them in the future to raise awareness around mental illness and policing. So Edgar and Susanna, I'm going to turn it over to you two.
Good evening. I am the father of Mr. Edgar Jr. Unfortunately, this is not a very easy thing to talk about, but you know, we sat there and watched the video, and as I was watching the video, all I could think of is, you know, this event definitely could have been avoided, and not only could have been avoided, I think personally, I think that a lot of times these things can be avoided. And I'm so glad to be a part of seeing what's going on and how you have started programs. And I so thankful to see this, that hopefully these programs will be a great path to helping those that cannot really help themselves, because mental illness is not a easy thing to deal with, as my son was dealing with and struggling with, and we as parents were trying to help him in this process to try and help him get the help he needed. And unfortunately, we, you know, wish that we would have been able to do more, and that you know, anything that could be done better, I'm all for it, to help others. You know, just being able to know that we can do things to be more effective in policing and providing better resources to those that are in these situations. And families should not have to be able to deal with what we're going through right now. And it's very, it's not easy, but you know, if we can make a change and help others, that would be the best blessing ever. We could see that, you know, seeing ways to improve policies and procedures, and how we can, you know, through the court systems, you know, just things that we can see and do, like just having some kind of an awareness of how much they can, like maybe like a signal of something. You know, how many times does a person have to go to a court system, and they're already seeing that this guy has repeat issues mentally, and there has to be ways that we can acknowledge these things, so that we don't have to see the end result of a family having to suffer like we are right now. But you know, I'm all for any kind of help, and any kind of guidance, and any kind of ways to be out there advocating to help those that can't help themselves. And I really am thankful to hear all the things that's going on right now. I saw those things, and it's really, really encouraging to me to be able to see what's going on right now in the city of Dallas. And hopefully we will be able to see these programs grow. And because, you know, we unfortunately, not enough of us know how to deal with mental issues. And the ones that are going through mental issues definitely don't understand what they're going through. And eventually it destroys their lives. And that's what we had to witness. So, and we're just hoping that somehow, some way, we can see difference in the change, and how we police, because definitely it's not about trying to get rid of police. That's not it at all. Policing is a necessary evil. We need it. But we do also need to find ways to promote a standby system where we can talk to these individuals that are going through these crises before it gets to the point of destruction of the person. And if we can do better, and if we can come up with better programs, and be able to not just put a person in for a few 2 or 3 days into an institution and then let them back on the streets. Unfortunately, these mental illnesses are not just a 2 or 3 day fix. This is a long-term issues that need to be going to take longer than just 2 or 3 days, because unfortunately that's what we got to see. That and unfortunately as well, we don't get to, as family members, we noticed that we're trying to go through the system, try to figure out how we can advocate to help the individual that's going through this crisis. And basically we had our hands tied as a family. You know, you want to be able to help, you want to be able to get out and say, hey, what can I do to help this person so that we can avoid this situation? Because as we were going through this process, we were calling all kinds of places in Dallas to try and get those kind of answers. And the answers were, we can't do anything about it until he does something. And that should not be the answer. It should never get to the point where somebody does something and eventually ends up destroying their lives. And unfortunately, you know, families need to be involved somehow. I don't know how, but I know we should be able to come up with great ideas to be able to do this. And I'm so thankful for Tanya for getting this opportunity to share how I feel about this, because you know, this is something that needs to be changed. And unfortunately, we have to do something better. And I believe that Tanya's on the right path, and in this organization that you are presented for us today, I can see that we are going that right path. And I hope that others will be able to benefit from this new challenges that we have, so that we can be better, not just as a city of Dallas, because I live in Chicago. So I grew up, I was in Dallas for 20 years, but this is not just a city of Dallas problem. This is a nationwide problem. And I would love to see this as a monument of change, so that we can definitely provide better services, provide better ways to protect those that cannot protect themselves. They don't understand what they have until it's way too late. And if there's ways that we can do this, I'm all for it, and I want to be a part of it. And I'm so thankful that now, you know, we have this Mental Health Awareness Month, and you know, we're going to do a walk for my son in honor of him coming up on the 22nd. And we're just so proud of him, because he was a great person. And if you got to know him, you would know that. But unfortunately, his ending doesn't look like it was great. It looked sad, you know, it looked like he was a criminal, but unfortunately, we don't see it that way. And we just have to deal with what we see, but it's not always what you see. Sometimes it's things that we can't see. And to honor him, we want to make sure that, you know, the things we like to see is especially when we saw how they went out and did the case and showed the video of my son. We asked for some things, and we think that it should have been an enlightenment to let people know that mental illness is not just something like a stigma to let people just just put aside, like, he's just sick or crazy. No, sometimes, you know, they need a little help. They need a little medication to get the substance that they need to be able to handle that. And I want to, you know, be there to be able to see this fulfilled and see others and be able to have a normal life. And if we could do this, you know, this is a great country. And I'm all for, anything that can make our country better. That's why I was, I was in the military, and I love my country, and I really believe that this country is wonderful, and we need to prove that we are the model for all other countries in the world. So I really like to thank Tanya for this, and hopefully that we can get programs and have people on the side to look at these situations and talk to these individuals before they go into a crisis that can't be fixed. I mean, my son was a great, like Tanya said. I I just wish that I had an opportunity to be able to help him, but unfortunately, the system did not allow me to do that, or my wife. So now we are going forward and not looking at the past. We know that this was meant from God for whatever reason, and we have to go ahead and accept that. But now it's our turn to show that we are who we are, and my son should be not disgraced like they portray him. And it should have at least been mentioned that the reason this happened, that he was in a mental illness state, which we asked for the city of Dallas police to do, but that was not mentioned. But can't take that back. We realize that they want to say that they want to be transparent, and unfortunately, transparency has to be all the way, not halfway. And so now we have to go ahead and deal with that, and realize that this happened, and go forward and do better for others that still have a chance. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. First, I just want to say my thoughts and prayers are with you and your wife. I know this is a great loss for you, and I'm so sorry for your loss. My condolences to you, and thank you for the courage that you had to come and speak to us today.
Thank you. Good evening. I just would like to add something to what my husband has said, and I apologize. I don't have my video.
It's okay.
Have a poor connection. So, like my husband has stated, people with mental illness, they cannot help themselves. They're not in the right state of mind. And, our son's behavior became a cry for help. He was diagnosed early in his 20s, and he tried to overcome this and, tried to control it. He refused our input on it. Um, because they are not in their right state of mind. And unfortunately, we need professionals handling these situations. Our son was admitted to 2 different mental hospitals in Dallas in the month of March. He was before a judge a week, just 4 days before he was killed, asking for mental help. And all this happened in Dallas County. And, we need to have better, they can have, linked, they can link this information for the police. Our systems, in the Dallas County do not talk to the systems in the city of Dallas. We need to have better systems, and we need to be able to help these individuals. We really appreciate, also you taking the time to listen to us. But like I said, mental health is not a crime. Mental health should be regarded as a amount of empathy, because these individuals are not able to help themselves.
And I think that I'm sorry. Just like my wife was saying about, when we were in that meeting, we were asking a lot of questions about, they were talking about how one jurisdiction, one county, and one city, and they're all part of the big conglomerate metroplex. And it seemed like nobody could connect anything together about whereabouts he was and why. And it seems to me that there's got to be a way to connect all these things together so that they could have been stopped or avoided. And unfortunately, that did not happen, and the system just failed. So we got to find a better way because we have such, look at this community, look at this technology we have. I'm talking from the city of Chicago to the city of Dallas. I mean, there's got to be better ways to do this, and I know we can come up with solutions. So I'm just open up for any suggestions, anything, and I would, if I can come up with suggestions, I would love to, because this is not just a one-day event. This is something that's going to be forever as long as I'm here.
Thank you again. I'm so sorry for your loss. My condolences are with you. And definitely mental illness is definitely something that is not a crime, and it's something that we definitely have to look into finding better avenues. And thank you for sharing with us this evening.
Thank you so much.
Director Claire, I'll turn it back over to you.
So Edgar and Susanna, you are welcome to stay on. One of the last pieces in this segment that I wanted to talk to the board about is that I am excited about launching a mental health project this fall. The board tasked us with one big project that you all wanted, which was dealing with protest, and a really desire of mine is dealing with mental health and mental illness. So my office will be teaming up with mental health professionals. We're hopefully going to get other departments in the city involved and families. I think nobody can tell a story of Edgar Tirado Jr. like his father and his mother just did. And so we have to put faces on those that have suffered from mental illness or are suffering. And so I'm really excited about that. I don't have all the pieces together yet, but I wanted to let the board know that that project is something that I'm excited to be working on this fall. And so I'm hoping that we'll be able to look at DPD's policies on mental health. We actually get a lot of complaints from people that have been in a mental health crisis, and I think we need to make awareness. For example, I don't know how many of you that are listening know that a police officer can take you into custody if you are a danger to yourself or others. So it looks a lot like an arrest because someone is being detained, but in those circumstances, they're not actually taking you to a jail. They're not taking you to Lou Sterrett. They're normally taking you to Parkland Hospital or Green Oaks Hospital, but that is a law and police can do that. And we have gotten a lot of complaints from civilians because I think they didn't understand that the police can do that because it feels like they're being arrested, right? When your handcuffs are put behind your back and you're sat in the back of a police car, it's very hard to distinguish that you're not being arrested. But in those cases, people are actually being detained. And there's a series of steps that officers have to take in order to make that assessment. And that's why I'm so glad Right Care is here. So now officers are not necessarily making those assessments. It's the social workers on the scene that are making the assessments and other people. And so the city is definitely trying very hard to get it right. But like you said, board member Marshall, what do we do in the hours when Right Care is not available, right? Or maybe when Right Care is out on another call and you have, you know, your average patrol officer on the scene. We want to make sure that all those officers have all the tools that they need and that the community of Dallas understands what their responsibilities are, what they can and cannot do, but also to see if there's any new models that the city could possibly explore and think about. So I am hoping that Edgar and Susanna are going to be a part of that team, helping me think about things as families, reaching out to other families here in the city of Dallas. And so I'm really excited about that. And as it starts to unfold, of course, I will be bringing it to you, my partners on the board, to let you know what that looks like. But I am really excited about delving into this in the fall. So.
Hey, I have a comment or a question. Edgar, sorry about your loss. Mental health is stigma stuff. Okay? So, and the police is not trained to handle this. Is there a database? Are families willing to call and register their family members that have mental health? So if there's something going on, the police will call that database and see whether those names are on the list. And then at that moment, they'll be able to respond accordingly. Or are people willing to even have their driver's license with a code, so that when the police calls and check their driver's license, a code will tell them that this individual has been diagnosed with a mental illness. Because look, the pressure is so much on the police. They are not magicians. They have to deal with data. They have to deal with information. So are families willing to engage their legislature, their state legislature, to create a database that the police can access? Or people go on their driver's license and say, hey, I'm suffering from this. So that way police will know when they get such a call, check that and say, oh, okay, this is a special kind of individual. Because we cannot solve all these problems if people are not willing to even identify that, because mental health has a stigma. So that's my comment. Until we, the families or individuals involved, are able to share that information, there's nothing the police can do.
Thank you, Mr. Okwa. Does anyone have any comments for Director McClary? Okay, thank you. Thank you again to the Tirado family. We'll move on to the next agenda item, the CPOB Chair and OCPO Director Mulley meeting with Dallas Police Department Chief Eddie Garcia. Director McClary, do you have anything you want to share with the board?
No, but I just want to also just let the Tirado family know you all are free to hang on or just drop off at any point in time that you choose. So just want to let them know that. The chief and I, we had our conversation today with the chief. We try to have it on the Tuesday of the board meeting, so it's very fresh in our mind. We talked about some hopefully upcoming initiatives. I thought that it would be helpful if he and I started to do some things in the community. He agreed with that, and so we're going to be looking at some potential opportunities where the police chief and I can get out in the community together so that people see the police department and also community police side working side by side. And so I'm excited about trying to help him identify some of the places where we can do that. So the community can start to see our offices work together. We did have a conversation about the follow-up to our report on low-level offenses. As you all know, we were not able to get data from the police department itself. We use their open portal data, which is the data that everybody can see on the website. And so we talked about better ways of our office being able to get actual raw data and aggregated data from the department. He is in support of that. I'll explain to him that it doesn't make sense for my office to report numbers and his office to report numbers, and they're not the same, and we're not on the same page, because that doesn't help build trust. And so we will be going forward in the future and trying to find better ways for the office and the department to share data so that we can ensure that we are making sure that the public has the most up-to-date and most accurate information. And so very good meeting today. We're on the same page about a lot of issues. And so I'll turn it back over to the chair to highlight some of the issues that he brought to the chief's concern.
One thing that I did bring to the chief, and I was very pleased with his response. There was a video that was out on social media about a young man who was stopped by the police. And it was a pretty negative encounter. Luckily, there was no, it didn't escalate, but not the type of experience that you would expect from Dallas Police Department. And when I brought it up to the chief, he had already seen the video. I was planning on showing it to him, had already discussed it with his command staff. And so they are working on ways to ensure that that type of incident doesn't happen again. And that was pretty much it. We've also talked about ways of getting feedback from the community on reform recommendations. and working with him to get those recommendations turned into policy. And so that's very encouraging. And I believe that's pretty much it. So it's a pretty upbeat meeting. Next month, we plan on meeting for lunch to discuss things over some tacos. So we'll see how that goes. And that's all I have. Any questions, board?
Mr. Chair, were you talking about the video where the officer was leaning on the guy's car?
Yes, that is the video I was talking about.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for addressing that.
Oh, you're welcome. When a city council member sends it to you, you have to act on it. So I did just that. So, any other questions, board? Okay, we will move on. The next agenda item, I have bad news. The Save the Date Right Now event, the panel discussion, the community forum on policing May 18th will need to be rescheduled. This is an event that I'm working on, and unfortunately, it's been rescheduled before. We have to reschedule it again. I apologize for that, but more info will be coming out soon in regards to that.
Oh, well, you're rescheduling the event?
Yes, director, the event has to be rescheduled. Yeah, it has to be rescheduled, director. And next, we'll move to the monthly activity report. Complaint intake specialist Woods.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hope everyone is doing well and everything's going okay. No, it's raining all over Dallas, so bear with me. I can see signals. It's going crazy all over the screen here today, so bear with me. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay.
Yes.
Alrighty, the office opened in October of 2019 and has received 1,074 complaints as of April 30th. There were 80 complaints and inquiries received by the office in April of 2021. There were 23 actual complaints and I received 57 inquiries. I received 57 inquiries. For division referrals for this month, 6 of those complaints were sent off as division referrals. 14 of them were no investigations, which means.
Taylor, hold on one second. Excuse me
I got them.
Taylor, hold on 1 second. Please put your, if you're not speaking, please put your computer on mute, please. Because your conversation is being recorded on the official record for this board meeting. I don't think you want that. All right, Taylor, you can go ahead. I apologize for interrupting you, Taylor.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. For the no investigations, 14 were no investigations, which means it could have been cleared by body worn camera. It could have been a complaint that came in that wasn't a DPD officer. There's lots of reasons why there's a no investigation. 4 of the complaints that we received this month are actually staying with internal affairs. And one of the complaints, Ms. McCleary disagreed with for the month. If ever y'all have any questions about any of the complaints or any of the inquiries I received, you are more than welcome to ask. Me and Ms. McCleary are here for questions.
Is the floor open, Mr. Chair?
Yes, board. Does anyone have any questions? I think Taylor, Ms. Wood, so you having some problems over there?
I'm sorry?
Wood, are you having some technical difficulties? You fine over there? Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Woods?
I heard the rain come back. I'm sorry.
We can hear you now.
Yes, we can hear you now. I'm saying, does anyone have any questions for Ms. Woods?
I didn't have a question for Ms. Woods, but I had a question for Ms. Clary about the one that the Tony Temple one. If she wants to elaborate on that one.
This is before I realized the case was on appeal, so there's nothing I can do about it right now. But I just wanted to follow up on what the discipline was. All the officers had been charged with misdemeanors, and those charges had later been dismissed. So I was curious about looking into the background of that case and figuring it out, but unfortunately I won't be able to bring it forward to the board until after the litigation is completed. And I also just wanted the board to be clear, I can disagree on a case at any time. So sometimes in a meeting I will say it, but I have gone back and reviewed other cases and disagreed with them as well. So when Ms. Woods gives you the number for that month, it may actually end up being more than that when I have a chance to go back and get all the paperwork from DPD. So sometimes there's more than the number that she indicates when she gives her report. But that's the issue with Tony Temple.
Thank you very much, Director. And so with the ones that we don't know of ahead of time, if you go back and see an issue, you'll update us if there's an issue at the future meetings.
Yes.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you, ma'am.
Director, this is David Kittner, District 13. Just a clarification, on April 19th, there are two cases that say case for review. Are those being reviewed because the complainant asked you to do so?
Those were ones when I'm debating on whether or not I want to disagree with them or not. And then we did have a case that came in for review.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mr. Price, I just wanted to follow up on your question. Those are usually the ones that the director reviews that she disagrees with. Those are generally the ones that we get back where they've done their independent review. And the situation where she provides us with independent review, these are the ones we don't have to vote on that goes on over to the police department after she's provided that review to us.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions, board members? Okay, we will move on. Board training, when communities try to hold police accountable, law enforcement fights back. Director McClary.
All right, let me see. So I sent you all this month an article from the Washington Post, and it's really kind of more of a discussion than a training. There's been a lot of buzz about this article in the oversight world because, you know, to have a major paper such as the Washington Post really delve into all of the problems that happen with oversight, I thought was very enlightening and very important. And also, I wanted the board to recognize that some of the problems that they're having in other cities, we have those exact same problems here in Dallas because of the way our ordinance is written. So this is kind of a precursor to me saying that at some point in time, I'm probably going to be coming to this board with suggested changes to the ordinance because they're not making the office or the board as effective as possible. So I want to point out those things for the board and then just open it up for questions and just your thoughts really. And like I said, this is really a discussion. So, you know, I know that we're not going to make decisions today. This is why it's a briefing item instead of a decision item. But I want to just highlight some of the concerns that this article brings out. And so you'll see in the article, there were several cities that have had reiterations of their board, right? So for example, this board was a review board. Now it's the Civilian Oversight Board. And even in other cities like Dallas, where the boards have been kind of revamped, they still don't have all the teeth they had to be effective. And so I just want us to be aware of that, that even though this is a new board and you definitely have way more authority than the Civilian Review Board, your predecessor, there are still some things that this board could have in its toolkit and things that you don't have. And so just the ability to look at that. Also, I wanted us to be able to, just see some of the models. So DC has a very similar model to our board, right? Where you can, not do any investigations first. And I have to say, to be honest with you, when I first took the job, even though I had read the ordinance many times, I didn't realize that. I thought that when a complaint came into the office, I could decide if I was going to take the complaint and investigate it, or if I was going to send it off to the police department. But the way our ordinance is written, we can only review cases after DPD has investigated them. And so there's concerns about that particular model. What does it mean that the police department always has to do the investigations first, do the independent investigations first before it's sent to an oversight office or an oversight board? So I'm raising questions. I'm not going to be making statements tonight about whether I think it's right or wrong, but I'm just flagging some things for this board to be thinking about and chewing over in your mind in terms of some things that, we might want to be thinking about. And so, I know one of the article highlighted, the Louisville Civilian Board that was very upset after the Breonna Taylor case because they can't make any recommendations on, have any say on discipline. And that's definitely a big gap in our ordinance. A lot of boards and officers to be effective should have a say on discipline. We don't have that. Discipline is not even mentioned in our ordinance. And so, we will send things off to DPD, to the chief and others, and maybe not know what happens to the officers unless, we have to figure out a mechanism, et cetera. So I believe that that's a big gap for us, that we don't have any say on discipline, have any interaction. I know in other offices, including the one where I came from, we actually went to the disciplinary hearings. The chief of police did retain the authority to be the final arbiter of discipline, but we were involved in that process. We could weigh in. We could give our opinion about what should happen. Sometimes, to be honest with you, we caught allegations that the police department didn't even catch. We were like, well, you didn't charge the officer with this allegation or that allegation, and we were able to do that because we were involved in the process. Here, we're not involved. It's kind of like we say, you may say as a board, and I may say as an office that we're concerned about Officer Smith or Officer Jones, and that's the extent of it. We don't get to see the final allegations, be involved in any of those discussions. And so that's a concern. I also want to talk about how it causes, this also causes rifts, right, with some groups that you would think would normally be our allies, right? Because many people perceive that their board, their oversight board or their oversight office don't have a lot of authority. And so it causes rifts because some people say, well, how effective are they? What are they doing? And so there's been a lot of rifts even among, groups that should be on the same page, right? That have concern about policing, that say, how effective is our board and how effective is our office? And so I know we've had some of that here in the city of Dallas, where people have felt like, hey, how much power does OCPO have? How much power does the CPOB have? Et cetera. And so some people believe, and it's people's beliefs, that, there's other ways besides our office and our board that they can be effective in police reform. And so I just want people to kind of know that that's out there, that people kind of think that, but I think that, obviously this board and this office is powerful. It needs to exist. And I think part of it is just public education in terms of people don't know the authority that you all and our office has. Also, just the frustration from oversight professionals. You will see in this field that a lot of the director positions, chairs of boards, board members turn over pretty quickly. I mean, a director to be in office for about 3 to 5 years is kind of what you're finding in this field because of all the frustration, the lack of resources. I mean, when I was reading quotes from many of the people in this article that I know, because I'm in this field, just talked about just the amount of stress, the lack of resources, always the push and pull between their city departments and the police department, and just the constant stress. I mean, one of my colleagues from, Sonoma County just said, I had to leave because I just felt like I might die, right? I could have a heart attack. It's just the amount of stress when he was over trying to see that county's sheriff's department. And so I just want people to understand this is a very stressful job. A lot of times you don't have all the resources that you have. We're overseeing the 9th largest police department in the country. And so you all can do the math in terms of staffing, things that need to happen, et cetera. And so there's a lot of frustration from oversight professionals that want to do a good job. I don't think anybody steps up and says, I want to lead an office or work for an office, or I want to be on a board for you to be ineffective. And so not only have you had paid staff, but also board members. That article quotes many board members, volunteers, just like the 15 of you that have just pulled their hair out, right? Because they felt like, is my time valuable? And so also the pushback from the police unions. Some cities, they're stronger than others, but a lot of times oversight has to deal with police unions and their thoughts about what should happen or not happen, et cetera. And so you just have a lot of things to contend with. And then also just depending on how your city feels about oversight. Is it a checkbox thing? Have they just decided to have an oversight board in office because it's quote unquote the right thing to do, but they're not giving the board or the office the tools and the resources that they need? And then some of the other frustration, like I said, was from people that felt like, these officers should have been fired or should have been disciplined. And, we didn't have a lot of authority to really get in there and really have our opinions taken seriously. And so I just thought that it was a really good, like literally in a nutshell, it was almost kind of like what did we call them back in the day? The Cliff Note version of all the problems with oversight kind of rolled into this one article. And so I really just wanted to kind of hear from the board, just some of your thoughts or kind of concerns. So my training this month is just, helping us to see kind of all the hills we have to climb, right, in order to be effective and to do the right thing. But ultimately, should a board, should an office exist? I am always going to say yes. I think cities need oversight, but we just need it to be effective and resourced properly, et cetera. And so with that, I will open it up and see if I turn it back over to the chair to see if you all have questions or thoughts.
All right, board members, the floor is open for questions.
Hey, it's Alan, District 14. So reading the article and obviously agreeing with the resource issue, the staffing level that we have is obviously nowhere close to being adequate for the size of police force we have. What do you even think that level needs to get to before you even can cover or begin to cover adequately the force that we have? Do you have any thoughts on where you need to get to, or where you feel like you need to get to for that to be at least adequate as far as being able to cover all the different issues that are coming at you?
I would probably say a staff. I mean, obviously, if I had my druthers, I'd probably say a staff of 10. But because I'd love to have positions, a couple of them, like the investigator position, I'd love to have 2 of those and 2 complaint intake specialists. But even if I could just have 1 of each thing, I think we need a community. We need a community person, a community director or liaison that is really helping us be out there and understand the community. We need an auditor or a data person that can really help us crunch the numbers and get the reports out and do the things. I think last month I talked to you all about risk management and other things. So we really need kind of our own data analyst or auditor. And so I would probably say, if I had my druthers, we're going to have 5 soon. I'd probably say we need at least 3 more, but if I needed to say more, I would say at least 10. And there are sister cities of ours, such as Austin. They've been around way longer than me, that only have 1/3 of the police force that they oversee, and they have about 10 staff. And even in the city where I came from, New Orleans, which is also only about 1/3 of the police department, to Dallas, we had 8 full-time staff.
The as far as being or having more say when it comes to disciplinary issues and getting more detail out of IA complaints and what actually happens to the officers and what's involved. That's obviously going to be a big issue with different unions and collective bargaining. What's the first step in that process? Is it going to the council? Is it going and working with the chief and starting to figure out what's feasible as far as going through that collective bargaining agreement? Because that seems to be that's going to be one of the biggest hangups is dealing with the unions and collective bargaining on that front.
I mean, I think it's Board Member Marshall. I think it's multi-layered. It just depends on what level of authority. Like if we actually want the authority to actually have a say in discipline, like actually say, we are one of the voting people at the table saying, Officer Jones, Officer Smith, this is what's going to happen, then I think it's going to take City Council because that's going to be an ordinance change. If it's just that we're notified and able to just sit in on the disciplinary hearings and give our thoughts and our opinions, that's something that the police chief could do. That would be in his lap to be able to say, sure, make sure you let Ms. McClary know when the disciplinary hearings are held so she can come and sit in, et cetera. So I think it just kind of depends. And so, and I think that the unions would probably jump in on some of that if we wanted to go for the higher level, meaning that this board would have the authority to actually weigh in on it, like literally have a say in it, versus just making recommendations. And I do think that would open, the union would probably definitely want to jump in on that. So I think it just depends on what level of involvement the board and the office want to have in terms of discipline.
Director McClary, as a follow-up to what Mr. Marshall said, I was struck in the article by how ineffective some of the police boards were in some of the cities that were profiled. And I'd like your thoughts on where our board stands about in terms of 1 being very weak and 10 being very high, or however you want to do it. Where do you think we stand?
I think we're probably somewhere right in the middle. I mean, I know that, all the long-term citizens of Dallas are very excited. And some of you are on that board, so you can actually see it in real life, how you all have so much more authority than the civilian review board. So I think we're kind of somewhere in the middle. I would probably say 5 to 6 in terms of, and I think we just haven't used some of our authority yet. We've yet to kind of pull the trigger. We haven't been using our subpoena power. We haven't been, which we have, looking more deeply at our investigatory power, which we have. And so I think that we're probably at a 5 or 6, and then it's just going to be on us learning this together and using some of the tools that I don't think we've been able to use yet in the toolkit.
Okay, thanks.
Director, I have a question. It's kind of a follow-up to Mr. Marshall's question in regards to the resources and staffing. What does that budget look like for
it just kind of
adequately fund the office where it measures up to the size of the police force?
It just really depends, because depending on obviously what city you live in, salary ranges vary. So I would say it would definitely be probably over $1 million. And I just want people to know, and that's for any department, like 80% of my budget is staff and salaries. And so I would probably say it'd be over $1 million, probably $1.5 million, just based on what the salary ranges are for a city like Dallas, So you have to kind of take that into, for example, if we were in New York, probably staff in New York are making higher than they would make in a Dallas, right? Or people here might be making higher than someone would make in a New Orleans, or a Louisville. So I would probably say about $1 million, $1.5 million.
So my follow-up question, you have some members of the community would say, well, why can't you just use volunteers for that? So why can't you use volunteers for those roles?
The roles, so when you do police oversight, there's a lot of confidentiality that is involved. And so to be able to have sensitive things like complaints and investigators be in the hands of volunteers is not the best. We have to maintain confidentiality. One of the worst things that can happen in oversight is that an oversight board or office be accused of leaking confidential information, not being able to keep the integrity of an investigation. And so the more people that you have that have not had any kind of ethical training, ethical duties, confidentiality involved in the mix, it just kind of weakens it. There are some things that volunteers can do. And I want to be sure to say that, because if you want to volunteer in the office, you can call us and reach out. There are some definitely, especially some of our community events, right? That's why you all now have community members on your subcommittee. So there are some things that community members can do. But in terms of actual consistency, it's better when you can have a board like you all, where you're going to meet the second Tuesday of every month, at 5:30, or you have staff that are in an office working 9 to 5 to be able to have continuity, because volunteers can turn over very easily and things of that nature. So I think for continuity, it's best to have the substance of the work be handled by a board such as yourself or staff.
But if I can, so from a staffer perspective, though, is there a question of quality when it comes to whether you have volunteers, whether you have paid staff? Is there a question of skill set as well, meaning that one of the volunteers doesn't know anything about policing and they're working in your office, as opposed to sitting on a board, which is a different situation? So doesn't that fall into play too, as the reason why you do need paid staff and not volunteers in your office?
I couldn't say it any better, Chair. Exactly, where you bring in people that have an expertise in the work, and that's very important, especially with an office like ours that is starting. When I've been trying to hire my staff, I've been making sure that I've been able to bring you guys some of the best and the brightest, because we have to hit the ground running. And so it's very important that we actually have people to have an expertise in the area in which they're being hired to function.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Tyson.
Director, you've mentioned a couple times that, possibly strengthening or changing our ordinance. Is that something you see maybe in year 3 us addressing, or kind of what's your time frame as far as building, kind of seeing how things work and how we can improve on them? When do you see us reapproaching City Council?
Board Member Tyson, you're reading my mind. Yes. I think that year 1 was such a crazy year for us, because we spent literally almost the whole time of it in a pandemic. And so I don't think that we've had a chance to really, that's what I said, spread our wings as much. So I'd love to see a year where we're really able to hit the pavement and do all the things that we need to do. And then I think that will help all of us be able to really see where we could be strengthened. And so you're reading my mind. So kind of our first year, and that was a wash, because you all remember the presentation that the board chair and I did. This board and office has done a tremendous amount of work under very trying circumstances. And I'm hoping we're just going up from there. I'm really excited about the things that are on your plate, the things that are on the office's plate that we're going to be bringing to this community of Dallas. So I am thinking year 3. I'm thinking we'll hopefully have a year where we're more fully functioning than we were, so that together we can put our heads together and think about where we can be strengthened.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Ms. McClary, this is Tammy Brown Rodriguez, and I had kind of a follow-up question, I guess, to Board Member Marshall's question. When you have mentioned on multiple occasions that you don't have the power to investigate until after the police and the IA have done their investigations, at least at this point. So considering the workload of the one investigator that we do have on staff, is he at 100% capacity? Are we in need right now for a second a full-time investigator, in your opinion?
I would say no. And some of that is by design. Like, I don't take on as many investigations as I would like. Because I am trying to be able to manage his caseload. But so to answer your question, I don't think we need one right now. If we had one, they would be busy. So I'm kind of just picking and choosing, because what I'm trying to do is look for cases that might help us identify patterns or other things of that nature. But as we start to get known, people are going to be coming to you guys for review. And that doesn't mean that everybody comes to you guys for review, you're going to say, hey, office, go do an investigation. But I think that the more we're getting out there, we're going to start to see more people asking this board to review their complaints and things. And so that's why I think this is just following up on Board Member Tyson's point. I think that this year we'll see Ms. Brown Rodriguez, and we'll have a better sense of that. But I do think that the more we're known, people are going to have faith in this board, that you guys are going to be able to look at their complaints and vet them and do what you think is best. So I am anticipating as we go further in this year that you guys are going to start seeing more reviews coming to the board, more people asking you to look at their complaints.
And so in that same strain, do you have a time frame of when you plan to present the budget or the increase of need for a budget? I would probably say maybe not this coming fiscal year, but maybe next coming fiscal year. I did ask, I'm in the conversation now about trying to see if we can get some staff increase. And it's a catch-22, because I know, and I can understand council probably thinking this way, or even my city manager, like, okay, Ms. Claire, you're saying you need these things, but we need you to prove with what you already have. So it's almost kind of like the chicken before the egg. So does she just need all her staff up front so she can run, or do we need to see her run so then we can give her more staff? So I think it's just an odd place to be in, because I think people are saying we want to see more from this office before we give you more resources. But you could also look at the other way and say, well, because you don't have these resources, that's why you're not doing as many things. So it's very tricky for us. And so probably more towards next fiscal year. Gotcha. And so this would be an opportune time for us to mobilize those community members who are on the subcommittees and activate their skill sets and support, so we can have a broader reach to the community.
Yes.
Gotcha. Great. Thank you, ma'am.
Any additional questions?
Just one quick follow-up. You had talked about the chief, I'm sorry, Director McClure, you had talked about the chief having the ability to make you a part of the disciplinary process, alerting you to when those hearings are going to happen, so you can at least be there. Have you talked to them, talked to the new chief and on that subject about having us involved or having you involved directly with those disciplinary hearings? So we're at least there and aware of what's going on. And if not, do you think he's open to that?
I mean, one of the things I have to say about Chief Garcia so far is that I feel like we can have honest and conversations with each other. It's to be honest with you, which has kind of been surprising to me, refreshingly surprising. We haven't disagreed on many things. So in full transparency, I have not brought that conversation to him. I'm hoping to do that. Hopefully in the next month or two, and just hear back from him about his thoughts on it. So for everybody that's watching in full transparency, I have not had that conversation with him. So I don't want anybody leaving here saying Chief Garcia has said that the office cannot be involved in that. I haven't asked the question. And like I said, I have found him to be very reasonable. So I think if he has concerns about it, he'll raise them with me, and we'll talk it through and, see where we are. And if I need to come to the board and ask for some more backup and some more woman power, I will do that. But I am planning to bring that to him in the next month.
Great, thank you.
All right. Any further questions?
Yes, I got a question. Tom.
Okay, Ms. Lopez. Go ahead.
Well, issues that has to do with staffing and administration. Okay, I mean, that the board has nothing to do with. I mean, we can vote, we can say one way or the other. I mean, what are we supposed to do when it comes to staffing matter, administrative matter, and budget matter, because that's not the board's responsibility.
I think what it would help do is just, I agree with you. I mean, obviously, city council and the city manager approve the budget. So you're right, the board does not approve the budget, but I think that since you all are all appointed by a city council person and the mayor, I think it may be helpful if the board has questions or thoughts to just share those. But I think we're all very clear that the decision around the final budget and rest with the city manager and the city council. So it would be, Mr. Opa, to answer your question, would be kind of more of a support.
But the support will be as citizens, not as board members. We'll be speaking about being a citizen of Dallas, going in and said we like this particular item, as opposed to a board member going in and say we'd like to support this particular issue for your department.
If I may, quantitatively, one of the many things of our duties and functions is to report back and provide feedback to our appointees. So in my opinion, I think this is in the same realm of as if we were to report back to our appointees what we feel or what we've heard from the community or what we think about where policing should be. So I think in my capacity as the mayor's appointee to this board, I'm for sure am providing feedback in every which way I can provide as it relates to improving the communities within our same vein. Thank you.
All right, any additional questions? Thank you, Director McClary. You've really given us some food for thought. This was a very, I think these were some great questions that board members provided as well. Thank you all. We will move on.
Mr. Chairman, can I be heard?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I apologize. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say I agree with each and every one of you in what you're saying. And that Mr. McClary said that we were about a 5 or 6 to the original, and the community out there. And I've been going around speaking, and that's why I definitely want to talk to you after this is over with. They feel like that we'll continue to be a 5 and 6, and until we do take a proactive approach. And a part of one of the things that everything that has been said is a part of that ordinance reform that we drafted up has a lot to do with that. And so it's like until we start being proactive and instead of reacting, the community think this is just another dog and pony show. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Reverend Wright, I apologize for that.
All right.
Yeah, and yes, make sure you call me after this meeting.
Definitely.
Okay. All right.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So next up on the agenda is our board training schedule. For the month of April, on April 13th, there was an OCPO board training, House of Being Oversight of Law Enforcement Can Help You. And then on May the 11th, the OCPOP board training, when communities try to hold police accountable, law enforcement fights back, which is what we discussed today. We just discussed a few minutes ago. And on the 18th, the NACOLE, National Institute for Building Community Trust and Justice. So that's on May 18th. And then on June 9th, NACOLE, role of the first line supervisor in facilitating change in law enforcement organizations. And that is all of the training that we have coming up. Any questions, board members, before we move on? Okay, we will move on. I'm sorry, did somebody, was someone about to ask a question?
Will we be back? I'm not sure if this is a question for you or Director McCleary. I really liked our in-office webinar, I guess, hangout, not hangouts, but, sessions with each other. I like to have that back. That was really great. We would have, engaging conversations afterwards, and just some really good stuff.
We can actually do that. We're still not to full capacity, but our office is big enough that if a handful of you wanted to come, I enjoyed those conversations as well. I think it gave the staff a chance to know the board members and vice versa. So for the ones that are coming up, I will just extend an invitation to you all just to let us know who would like to come by the office. Just so you know, too, the city is opening back up. So somebody's in the office every single day now, Monday through Friday. So you guys can have access to staff Monday through Friday. Every day, one of us is in the office. And so I will send out the ones for that are coming up. And if any of you want to come by, we can definitely social distance. And I think it would be nice to have that again. I thought those were great as well. I just thought about it. I need to get my big screen TV, but I think we can figure it out.
Thank you. Next up, board member update on scheduling town hall meetings. Do we have any updates?
I'm coordinating with Ms. McCleary and my council member. I'm trying to do it in June.
Okay, great.
We, Tammy Brown Rodriguez and myself are doing a coordinated one on June 1st. We're still trying to get all the details on location and time, but we've set a date today, so we're on the schedule for June 1st.
That's awesome. I'd love to be there if you guys invite me to it.
Absolutely, of course you're invited. Everybody's invited.
Yeah, I'd love to. I think that's going to be great. I'm excited about the event the two of you are planning. I know it's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, and it will be in person, but we'll also have Zoom available so those people who want to participate virtually can do so.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? All right. We will move on. Our next meeting will be June 8th. Per the Open Meetings Act, the agenda will post 72 hours prior. We will continue to work with our board members to ensure a robust and transparent agenda for all. If you arrived late and did not get to say roll, please announce yourself and your council district.
Tammy Brown Rodriguez, District 9. Paula Blackman.
All right. Thank you. Just want to make sure. I'm sorry.
I think I snuck in right under the gun. I think I got there just in time for Alamo District 14.
Yeah, you did. And Ms. Rodriguez got here, I believe, a few minutes after we had done roll too. So I knew she was here, but I just wanted her to for the record.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Do we have anyone waiting for public comment?
Sorry,
okay, I will take that as a no. With that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Allen Marshall, District 14, so moved.
Tammy Brown Rodriguez, District 9, I second.
We're probably moving second to adjourn the meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
All right, motion passed.
I heard a nay.
They were outvoted. Motion passes. The time is now 8:04, and we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a
good
great
night. Thank you, everyone.
Stay safe.
Got a new hat ticket.
As we see you, Reverend Wright. You looking good, looking good.
Got my hat on. I know y'all missed my face.
We did, we did.
I love it.
All right,
Reverend Wright, we gonna talk
looking
about hats.
awesome.
Reverend Wright, we're gonna talk about you getting me a hat too when you call. We're gonna talk about you getting me into the hat game too.
You're looking pretty sharp,
All right,
there,
you
Reverend
got
Wright.
it.
You're looking sharp, Reverend Wright.
How about y'all? I'll get
Nice
with you
brim,
later.
Reverend Wright.
All right.
Nice brim.
All right.
Y'all have a good
All
one.
right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Yeah, Chair, when you finish with Reverend Wright, can you call me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'm finna call you.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Good night.
Bye.
See you tomorrow.